So they can be turned around. I mean, it's not a pathological case, so it's all right to work with. But yes, listen to them, ask open-ended questions, and please don't judge whatever they say. Let them say whatever they say. And if the response is negative, if our response is negative, give alternatives instead of saying it's not done or it's not happening, because then they get totally discouraged with it. One of rules happening, then the person tends to be aloof, because the what is inscribed in his or her mind is, I have no choice in the world.
They trust nobody.
Yeah, because they're like, anyway, I think differently, because the trouble is they don't share their thoughts, right, very easily. So they seem to think that they are the only ones who think differently. Whereas there are a number of others who do the same. It's just that they don't express, so they don't know. So it's parents or wherever the child has been brought up, there is some sense of comparison, some sense of judgment, where he or she is always told, discipline, do this well, do that well, study hard. When there is a lot of drilling down, be secure. Yes. They're being suppressed because normally the environment is very judgmental. Either the school or first feel listened to. They normally feel that they're not being listened to. So that's where they need to. An aloof person transformation is possible here. Good chances of the person turning around. But yes, depending on the degree of aloofness, you need to be a little persistent. Right? So it helps if a person who's aloof has a colleague or a family or a friend who's there who can help him or her consistently turn it around. But they're usually open to listening. It's just that they need to. Positive thing about dealing with a person who has no clue how to manage his ego. Sorry?
How he tolerates people is fine with that. He is intolerable.
No, but that's where the transformation can happen. Now, see the point of the states. It's about the whole bifurcation is about how do you manage your ego. Right? Where, poor me state, see, because the ego can be present in all your 4 control dramas or any good ideas. What is the problem here is self-esteem is extremely low because of the background that they come from. Sometimes, not necessary. Depends on people who normally have. Yes, it requires patience, certainly, but definitely easier than dealing with a poor me. Yeah, because these who's not open to listening. So it helps if you're with an aloof person and you have that patience, because it's easy to change an aloof pattern. Just make the person feel secure and not judged, and the person will open up. So a total crybaby is someone who's, right? Whereas someone who's a poor me, is it because these are guys who are open to listening. Yes, we need to be tolerant because. Yes. It takes a lot of patience, but yes, work to something that this person has said or done. It's best to divert it in terms of other alternatives. Say, all right, that's a thought, that's something interesting that you have said. Would you also like to explore XYZ alternatives? So instead of saying what you said doesn't work, because then the person will totally withdraw. You wish to respond negatively because this person is naturally not the sort who will like limelight. He or she wants companionship, but he's not the sort who likes to have the spotlight on him or her. So it's best to not be judgmental. Don't comment on that person unless it's a positive comment, unless it's something that encourages the person. If you think you would explore myself, but why don't we go ahead with your recommendation? Yeah, in the sense you either shift the focus away from the person. That sets me back again. I'm already in a pattern and you're judging me further. I'm going further aloof. Here it's best to say, all right, that's an interesting choice, not something that I... Right? So here it's important that we engage the person in a dialogue. So open-ended questions like, what do you think about this? Which movie do you think we should go to? This is the idea that is presented. Do you have any comments on it? Yes? It could be, but what is important to be aware of here is if we are communicating with a person that is aloof, please don't judge, right? So let's say if you've asked me, what movie do you think you want to go to, and I say something like Bodyguard and you hate Salman Khan, please don't say, oh, Salman Khan, right? Because I don't want to put in efforts, it's not worth it. Yes or no answers, gets away with it, doesn't have to talk. Nice, because the person is in a pattern where the script says, it's best to ask open-ended questions. Because by nature, the person is very comfortable with close-ended questions. Heavily judgmental environment in the childhood tends to bring about this particular pattern. Of course, we say childhood because patterns are formed there. It's very possible that a person can form this pattern even as an adult. For someone who's, let's say, in a marriage where one spouse is extremely dominating, it is possible that a very regular person becomes aloof over a period of time. Normally these people are, they may get into a slight depression once in a while, but they are usually psychologically okay. It's not a state to be very worried of, but at the same time the person does need attention, need energy, so it's best to see how are we reacting and how are we communicating with that person. So this, in terms of communication, is passive. So if we have to engage in a dialogue with this sort of always being compared, look at the neighbor's child, he or she is so smart. Why did you get only the second rank? Why can't it be first? That kind of a childhood normally brings in this pattern where you say, no amount of effort I put in is good enough. Why put it in any way? It's typically always been told, behave yourself, don't say this, don't do that. Good children are supposed to be like this. Eat your meals properly, ensure that cutlery is in place. Yeah, someone who's already, she will ask you about your preference of movies, but he or she wouldn't reveal his or her own answers. Right? Yeah. The person will definitely get back to you, whereas someone who's reserved will be okay with not having a conversation at all. He or she wouldn't seek attention. So this person definitely gets back, wants attention, but at the same time won't answer. Doesn't want to contribute. Again, normally a person tends to be aloof if the childhood is such where the parents are heavily judgmental. Someone who's... Okay. Now, if you have to distinguish between a person who's naturally reserved versus someone who's aloof, because sometimes it's possible that a person is naturally reserved and wouldn't want to talk about anything to anybody in general, right? So, if you were to ask me, okay, what are the kind of movies you like? And I simply give a one-word answer saying, I like light comic movies. That's it. I don't really say much, or I don't go on to discuss movies. It's possible that I may be reserved and I may not want that conversation in the first place, not that I'm seeking attention. But if it's a person who's aloof, he or she may give the same response, but if you stop that conversation because there is no response, he or she will come back to you and say, why aren't you pursuing the conversation in some way or the other? So, in monosyllabic answers or simply saying, ha, okay, absolutely no contribution. That's normally the aloof kind of a person. If you look at it from the practical or the corporate context, you would find these people in meetings sitting quietly, as you say, boss, okay, I tried to say things, nobody listened. That's the kind of, those are the kind of signals that we have when the aloof control drama is being played out. It is a control drama because of the fact that the person still wants attention, slightly less passive but still in the passive mode, which is aloof. Right? This control drama is, as the word says, aloof in the sense the person wants to seek energy, of course, the person wants attention, but at the same time doesn't want to overtly seek it, which means he or she will try and get attention by being quiet. Right? So someone, like let's say typically a child who's hungry but who will not have food. And yeah, he or she won't cry, but then you realize that the child is in pain, but he or she is just not showing it. Or as a person, this is normally the kind of a person, let's say, if I ask you, okay, have you traveled a lot in the world? And you would say, yeah, I have. That's it. No further information. Monosyllabic answers. Yes or no. No. It's not a person who would engage in a conversation. When you engage in communicating with this kind of a person, you feel that you're the only one talking. Because after a while, this person just doesn't contribute to it. So that's the first pattern, poor me. The second is, obviously comes from a huge sense of insecurity. The script running in the mind is, there is no one for me. Right? And that is what we will need to, in a very subtle way, change by saying that, no, it's not that there is no one for you. There are people for you, if only you reach out. Right? So, it helps to provide us that cocoon, that security to that person emotionally for a little while, and help the person be aware of how he or she talks and behaves, and accordingly shift that pattern. Right? But yes, it is important that once we embrace that person, do bring in that awareness. Otherwise the pattern continues, and there is no point in letting the pattern continue there. It is important to break it. But yes, if you see an extreme state, if you see people in the pattern for a while, for more than a few weeks, it's best to seek help. Right? So it's not something that can be read into, but in a general, regular environment where you know the person is comfortable, if the body language is still closed, then you know there is some sense of insecurity, and the poor me pattern, so a simple change of words makes a lot of difference when you're talking to these people. Oh yes, all of us go through all the control dramas and we play it all really well. But it's so long as we're not stuck in a pattern for a very long time, it's all right. And so long as we are aware of the pattern. Now, if you look at it from the self-awareness perspective, if we tend to play poor me, look at what happens. Now, we, in the long run, would end up alienating people because we are looked at as people who crib. Right? People who don't really communicate when they need it. Because for some reason the poor me's always tend to say, I needed you but you were not there. But after a while you tend to wonder, why didn't you call me when you really needed me? Why are you cribbing about it now? That pattern tends to continue because energetically they tend to put out frequencies which naturally alienates people. So when they really need, there is no one to help them, and that perpetuates the pattern. So what we can do is, if we are being confronted with a poor me person, it helps to engage the person and try and embrace the person verbally and in any other way that is possible. They do. Which is where once you are in that embrace, energetically, verbally, whichever way is possible in that relationship, once you are in that embrace, it is important to start telling the person, look at what you're saying. Because more often than not, they're not aware. It is passive aggression. It is passive aggression because they don't communicate, but at the same time, you know the body language is, in a sense, threatening, but in a very innocuous way. These are typically people who would have very closed body language, legs crossed, arms crossed, eye contact missing. That's typically the pattern that you would observe. So if you have to draw a parallel in terms of the way they communicate, verbally and non-verbally, this is equivalent to passive aggression.
Yes. The way I'm sitting right now, what does it propose?
Of course, we can't read too much into body language. It's a pointer, but yes, sometimes you might do this just because you're feeling cold. Normally, these people tend to have suicidal tendencies, so we need to look at exploring the pattern. But yes, one ground rule when it comes to communicating with these people, please use a lot of we and us and not you and me, because what the person is very uncomfortable with is the fact that he or she already feels very separated from the world. It's about him or her battling the world all the time, which is something we'll need to reduce through support. You didn't have enough support when things were required, but now things are not the same. So let's try and respond in a different way. But at the same time, it's for this particular person, it's very important that when we communicate, we talk in terms of we and not you and I. Because the moment you say you and I, this person feels too left out. And what he or she is looking for is that sense of companionship, that sense of connection with people, which for some reason is not being given to that person. So yeah, it's not a state that can be ignored if it's a consistent pattern, because extreme states of poor me can lead to depression, can lead to suicidal tendencies as well. So yes, I mean, if you see an extended pattern of poor me, it is best, if you are in the realm of counseling, or if you know of someone who's in an extreme pattern, it is very advisable to seek help, because you will see that he or she is open to listening, because he or she, you can observe the body language, he is paying attention, and the body language is fairly open, he's not being defensive. Then you know this person can be talked to, right? And in that case, yes, you can tell the person that this is probably coming from a pattern which has no relevance now. Yes, maybe in the past you had a very difficult time, maybe in the last few years you've shouldered too many burdens, or